This is a stunning painting of the male body, but the wildly influential painter who painted it was famous for painting women, and the way no one had ever dared to before. Gustave Courbet didn't paint women idealized or mythologized, just naked and human and real. He was controversial and he was obsessed. He was, by every account, one of the most heterosexual forces in the history of Western art. So why does this painting, a quiet, intimate, recently discovered study of a male nude, feel so personal? Why is there a handwritten inscription on the back that gives us clues about a much broader understanding and practice of sexuality than we had previously thought? And what does it tell us about what was really going on inside the mind of one of history's most celebrated painters, in a century when the answer could have destroyed him? Let's start at the beginning. Gustave Courbet arrived in Paris in 1839 at 20 years old, vowing, in his words, to lead the life of a savage. And he meant it. He refused to enroll in the official academy. He taught himself by copying old masters at the Louvre and drawing from live models at the Académie Suisse. When a count once suggested he was proud, Courbet shot back, "I'm the most arrogant man in France." He ran with radicals like Charles Baudelaire, who wrote poems celebrating lesbian love, and Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, the anarchist who declared property is theft. These weren't polite company. This was Bohemian Paris at its most combustible, a world where conventional morality, sexual and otherwise, was something to be challenged, not obeyed. And Courbet challenged everything. He painted peasants at the scale of kings. He refused the Legion of Honor. He joined the Paris Commune in 1871, and he was blamed for the toppling of the Vendôme column, that towering monument to Napoleon's military glory. And for that, he was thrown into prison for 6 months. When he got out, they seized his house and ordered him to pay for rebuilding the column. He fled to Switzerland, and he never came back. He died there in 1877, broke and broken at 58. This is the man who painted this painting, someone who lived as if rules were suggestions. Courbet's obsession with the female body produced some of the most unabashedly sensual paintings in art history. Woman with a parrot, a nude sprawled beneath a bird, all heat and abandoned. The Source and Woman in Waves, the female body emerging from nature, dripping and unashamed. There's Sleeping Nude, Woman with a Dog, bodies at rest, watched but unaware, radiating a frank animal warmth that no one else at the time was painting. And then the paintings went further. In The Sleepers, we see two women intertwined in bed, in a passionate and unashamed depiction of lesbian bonding. And then there's the famous painting, The Origin of the World. A close-up we can't show on YouTube, but it remains the most explicit painting in any major museum. For over a century, it was hidden behind curtains. Today, it hangs in the Musée d'Orsay, still making people gasp. And then there's paintings like The Happy Lovers. Here, Courbet and a woman are in a dizzy embrace, whirling together. It's playful, almost giddy. Sexuality in this painting isn't dangerous or transgressive. It's joyful. Courbet clearly saw desire as something to celebrate, not suppress. So this is an artist consumed by the body, by desire, by the erotic charge between people, which makes the male paintings even more interesting. Let's take a look at how Courbet handles men when he does paint them. In The Wounded Man, we see Courbet himself, eyes closed, head tilted back, blood on his shirt, in a pose that reads less as heroic suffering and more as a kind of a swoon. It's passive, it's vulnerable, and it's the opposite of masculine bravado. In another self-portrait, Man with a Leather Belt, he's dreamy and inward-looking. One hand is almost aggressively clipped onto his belt as if he's about ready to take it off. The other one is gently caressing his own cheek. The gaze is soft and unfocused. A 19th century viewer would have recognized these poses as sensitive, perhaps even effeminate. In his painting, The Wrestlers, he shows two men's bodies locked together in a way that's far more intimate than athletic. The way their hands are pushing down on each other's head rides a very blurry line between strong and gentle, even suggestive. All of the elements of this painting draw the viewer to a central, dark focal point, right where their hips and legs intertwine, in a way that makes the men almost merge together. One of the men's legs juts down, stiff and solid, between the others, whose knees are bent in submission, yet his right hand doesn't defend himself. It reaches out with an open palm, for balance or as a way of showing openness to the experience. In The Sculptor, we see what looks like Courbet himself again. This time his wrists are bent, his neck is tilted to the point of exaggeration, and his eyes betray a longing of someone who has just been ravished against the rocks. His change purse is thrown on the ground as if all worldly cares have been tossed away, and there's water spewing from the hillside near his knees. Nothing about this painting reads traditional masculinity. Anyone with any insight into human nature would have seen it as coding for, at minimum, a pushing of the boundaries of gender roles. There's a pattern here. When Courbet paints men, the masculinity is soft, yielding, and inward. There's no chest pounding and no triumph. There's only bodies that are present and going with the moment, submitting to the moment. It's the same quality he brings to the painting we're looking at today. Let's look now at the painting that is the subject of this essay. We have what appears to be a working-class man or athlete in his late 30s or 40s, maybe even his 50s, and he kneels with one leg on a soft red cushion supported by a fragile wooden stool. The left hand is braced on what looks like a brick or a box of wood, whatever was lying around. This is clearly the work of an early artist, painted with what was lying around. Yet the choice of the subject and the positioning is unique and shows a brilliance and a connection to the subject that is very rare in a young artist. His position isn't heroic, it's passive. His back is to the viewer. He's 100% vulnerable. But he isn't defeated. He's aware. He's a participant because he's looking backward toward the painter or the viewer, not quite making eye contact, but enough to reveal his complete humanity. Even the wrinkles on his face and the furrows in his brow reveal that he's not just a smooth, chiseled model, but a raw, real man with tousled, uncoiffed hair, strong fingers that have seen real work, ribs that reveal physical activity and robust health, and a linear quality that is almost statuesque. Warm ochres and pinks in the background build up the flesh, and cooler tones provide the shadow contrast where his head dangles. His feet are blackened with dirt, and that adds to the rawness and reminds us that he's not a statue after all. His front side, his virility, is almost completely swallowed, hidden, and shadowed in this canvas, de-emphasized. Yet he is still clearly very masculine even without it, even in this pose, which is turning him into an object of another man's gaze. His masculinity is so unwavering that none of this phases him. In fact, he seems proud of his body and of his role in this painting. The canvas is 29 inches by 33 inches, large enough for detail, but small enough to keep it in a home. This composition and this relationship between painter and subject is thrilling to see because it's a complete subversion of what we are taught to think of as great art. And it feels like both the painter and the model are in on this together. If you'd love to have this painting in your home or explore other works by Courbet, of the male body, or other great masterpieces that changed the world, you can find high-quality canvases through the link in the description right here. It'll take you to my website where you will find my hand-selected paintings that you can have sent directly to your home. Shipping is free worldwide, and by purchasing, you'll help me enormously to continue creating videos like this. We don't know exactly who this model is, although we do have some clues. Historians have documented a thriving subculture of working-class men in Paris who sold access to their bodies in various different ways, what one police chief called the Freemasonry of vice. Laborers, waiters, street vendors by day, available in parks, arcades, and bathhouses by night. The men who posed at open studios like the Académie Suisse came from this same world. We can't know this model's exact story, but the economy of male bodies in 1840s Paris was fluid and well known. This working-class man would have been paid for his work, but what he didn't know was that he would be made immortal for his beauty. Now let's turn the painting over, because this is very interesting. On the back, in red paint, Courbet inscribed, "À mon collègue et cher ami Gilbert," to my colleague and dear friend Gilbert. That word collègue tells us Gilbert was a fellow artist, not a patron or a collector. He was a peer. Would it have been common in the 1840s for a man to give another man an intimate painting of a male body with this kind of dedication? Probably not. Male friendships could be emotionally expressive in ways that might surprise us today, but this gift, a painting you'd made yourself, inscribed with affection, feels like something more. In Courbet's France, homosexuality wasn't technically illegal. The Napoleonic Code had decriminalized it in 1791. But even if he was bisexual or homosexual, it was dangerous. Same-sex desire existed in a shadow world of secrecy and coded language. Depictions of the male body, outside of a classical context, raised uncomfortable questions that the female nude never did. But of course, Courbet spent his entire life doing things that were dangerous. So who was this Gilbert, or as the French would say, Gilbert? The provenance tells us the painting belonged to Jules Julien Gilbert of Paris until his death in 1909. How it reached him is murky. Either Courbet gave it directly to him by 1877, or it passed through a relative earlier. If he gave it in those final months, dying, exiled, and penniless, then it was one of his last acts. A man left with nothing, passing on something he'd held on to for more than 30 years. Why this painting? Why Gilbert? After Gilbert's death, the painting passed through dealers to the Kalikian family, who kept it for 3 generations until Nanette Kalikian bequeathed it to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 2020, and that's where it hangs in all its magnificence today. But for nearly a century, no one outside that family even knew it existed. We didn't know the full story of Gustave Courbet, and we didn't fully understand his sexuality or his mind. Gustave Courbet changed what painting could be. Manet's Olympia, with its prostitute staring directly at the viewer, is unthinkable without Courbet's example. Caillebott's Floor Scrapers, with its working-class men stripped to the waist, followed a path Courbet opened up. Scholars have linked Caillebott's fascination with the male body to his presumed homosexuality, and the tradition traces back to paintings like this one. Across the Atlantic in America, Thomas Eakins painted rowers, swimmers, and boxers with the same unflinching attention, and it cost him his teaching career. Now, I should be honest, the Met calls this attributed to Gustave Courbet. That's their way of saying probably, but not 100% certain. The style fits his early work. The provenance traces to someone he personally inscribed it to. But there's no mention in letters, no exhibition history. Complete archival silence, which is exactly what you'd expect for a student work given privately to a friend. Courbet would go on to shake the foundations of Western art. He would reject the salon system, champion realism, get himself jailed and exiled for his convictions. But before all of that, he was just a 20-year-old man in a cold studio, trying to paint what he thought was beautiful, what was right in front of him, trying to get the flesh right, trying to see, probably trying to change how we see masculinity, how we see sexuality, trying to experiment with a world that was on the edge of greater change. And when he finished, he didn't sell it. He gave it to his colleague and dear friend, Gilbert. Courbet painted women and men, lesbians and laborers, the intimate and the everyday. He ran with anarchists and poets. He lived as a savage by his own description and dared anyone to stop him. We should be proud of people like that, people who refused to sort themselves or the world into neat categories, no matter the cost. This painting and its tender inscription on the back is proof that the cost was worth it. The next time you're at the Met, seek this painting out. One day, you may find yourself standing in front of it, this quiet, powerful study painted by a young man who didn't yet know he would change the world. Let me know in the comment section if you agree with my thesis that this painting and the others that I revealed to you today show us something a bit more complex about the sexuality of Gustave Courbet and of the 19th century than we previously thought. I'd also like to know if you're familiar with any other works by Gustave Courbet that reveal similar or even different reads. Can't wait to hear from you, and I will see you in the next video.